So day 4 of the Cal, and today is the first time that you need to make a choice. So this is the first time that your gargoyle is potentially becoming unique to the one of others that they're making on the Cal as we go along. So far you've made your body and head, and we've made the 2 arms with our joints in, so with our elbows, but it's time to choose about the kind of claws or hands that your gargoyle is going to have on the end. Now, the original Phillipe the Gargoyle shown here has a simple 2 split like that. So it's a 2 split foot that I've added claws onto the end. Now we won't cover the claws today, we'll cover the claws later on, but things like claws are great done in that slight contrast colour. If you are going to use 2 colours, this would look great if you used a slightly darker or lighter shade to do the claw, but this is a single split to 2 prongs like that. Then the alternative pattern that I've just given you, so the free PDF download that you can go and get that gives you some alternatives, I've split to 3 rather than 2, and I've actually added knuckles onto the top like that. So we're going to be using bobble stitches to add knuckles onto the top like that. Then, if you've got the PDF version of the gargoyle pattern, you'll also have 2 extras in there as well. So you have 2 of the patterns. You've got this one here, which is probably the most simple. So if you are somebody who's a beginner, you don't want to tackle splitting, although it really isn't as hard as it might look. Don't be worried about the words or the technique. I'll show you all of that in this video. Then you could go for this one. And this one has got elbow spikes added on. Or you've also got this one, which is, I guess, more of a classic monster hand. What you've got is a split of 3, so similar to what we're going to be doing here technique-wise, but then an additional thumb that sits on the outside. So it's more like a hand, I guess, when you see it like that. So they're all your options. So classic Phillipe, the new one has got the knuckles. I'm going to show you specifically, I'm going to show you this technique here in terms of splitting evenly, and then I'm going to do the 3 with the knuckles on as well. So you've got them in this video. So what we've got after yesterday is our limb like this. So you've got your arm. And then what we're going to do is, this is one where I've already added those ones onto the bottom. So that's what, by the end of today, what we're looking for is to have our 2 complete arms. So what you need to do when it comes to splitting is we want them to be even to the joint that we've put in at the elbow. So you will need a little bit of stuffing today. That will make life a little bit easier. What you'll need to do is put some stuffing into the bottom part of the arm. So not the top wider bit where we started, the bottom part of the arm, put a little bit of stuffing in there like that. And then we're going to split this into 2 even rounds. So I've got it on your hook as if we'd be continuing normally. Now, when you do these joints, everyone seemed to be slightly different in terms of the angle that they come out at. What that may or may not be is obviously going to be very hard for me to diagnose for you from a distance. But the good thing is it's very easy to solve it. So what you want to do whenever you're splitting off things when you've got a joint like that, and this would go for frog legs and other things like that beyond the gargoyle as well, is make sure it's sitting nice and flat. So make sure your close, your joint close, is sitting nice and flat like that. And you want to make sure then that where you do the split, they're going to sit flat as well. And what it means by the split is it saves you having to make 2 separate pieces and then sew them on, or 3 separate pieces if we're going for 3-toed. So all you're going to be doing is you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stitches at the moment. And we're going to split to 2 rounds of 6 stitches. So all you do is you come across the top and you go in like that. So I've come across the top just to make that really clear. And then I need to go into the front side of this stitch. So I'm not going in the back like that to join it in. I come across the top with that and I go into the front side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. And that's going to form my 2 new rounds. So this forms a round here, and then we leave those stitches there that we'll rejoin onto in a second, and we'll then rework over there. So if you're doing the original Phillipe the Gargoyle toes, which, well, I keep saying toes, I apologise. These are actually the hands, so effectively they're the claws. All you're going to do is split like that once, And then you'll be carrying on working that second toe. So you'll be increasing up so you get that bulbous piece on the edge to work that second one. So I'm not going to show you the whole of that one. I'm actually going to demo this one, the newer one, just because I've got to split more than once anyway. So you get to see the techniques a few times and the rejoining. But the same would apply to this one as well. All those the techniques that I'm doing here in terms of splitting, it's all the same. It's just about getting it nice and flat from the elbow to get a nice, neat finish. So when it comes to this gargoyle, I do actually need to do a few rounds of increasing before we're going to do that splitting, because that's going to be the base of the hand. So I'm just going to pop my stitch marker back in there and then increase up to do the hand. So now I've increased up to create the hand as such, so that increasing at the bottom there. What I'm going to do is split into 3 even rounds of 6 stitches. And like I just discussed with the splitting of the other, the reason why I've not been specific is because this I designed this gargoyle pattern back in 2020, and really, having seen lots of gargoyles, I'd say one of the questions that I get asked is about this joint being at a slight angle to the limbs and fingers that you put in place. And so that's why I've left this nice and vague here on purpose, so that you can decide where these 3 rounds split evenly on yours, rather than me saying exactly where that is. Now, what I mean by that is we've got 18 stitches here at the moment. And what I'm going to do is flatten that joint out like that, and then bring that up so I can look at these 18 stitches evenly. Now, if I want this to sit totally flat in terms of the fingers being at the same angle to the elbow joint, where the 6 will be on the end here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there, then there'll be 6 through the middle, and then there'll be 6 on the end. But do you see how my live stitch, so my end of round, is actually here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that stitch marker through, even though I don't need it anymore, but it will show you where that round count is. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 from that side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from that side, in fact, and 1 from the front of here to split off my first finger. So if you're following this and you just want to follow exactly what I'm doing, and your end of round counter looks about in the same place of mine like that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to double crochet 1 here, and then I'm going to be jumping across to the other side, counting that 6 backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then double crochet into the front of there like that. And these are going to form my 2 new rounds. So a big tip when I'm doing small fiddly rounds is, rather than using my stitch marker and actually counting them round by round, what I find much easier is to times the number at the end by the number of rounds that I'm doing. So this first instruction, it's going to say to do 2 rounds on these 6. So what I would do is I'd times 6 by 12, and that way I know I just got to double crochet 12 stitches rather than worrying about moving the stitch marker. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I've done the bottom bit before the knuckle. Now, I've also not stated where to put this knuckle, and that's because I know that the perfectionists amongst you will enjoy the fact that this angle, this elbow, effectively, naturally turns inwards in one direction. So if you look really closely at where we closed off those stitches like that, do you see how you can see these bumps on one side? And on the other side, you can't. You might find, certainly I always have done, that the joint closes in away from the bumps. So the bumps would effectively be the elbow, and this would be the arm moving inwards more naturally like that. Now that means that even though we've made the 2 same pieces, if you move your knuckles, you can get them both to naturally curve inwards on the gargoyle's front. So we've got those facing that way like that. That means that our knuckles need to be on this side of the hands. when we put them in place. So I would say putting a stitch marker back in at this point might be a good idea, so you make sure you don't make the round any longer. So this round, what you're effectively doing is you're double crocheting another round, but one of the stitches will become a bobble in order to put your knuckle in place. And the reason why, again, this isn't specific in this pattern is partially because I knew I was accompanying it with a cal, so I'd be able to explain all of this, but also it means that you can go for complete perfection because you can alter this pattern slightly to suit yours, because it will all depend on how you split back here as to where you need that knuckle to be in order for it to land on the front. So in order to land it on the front of mine, I've got my bumps for my back, that's moving inwards. I'm going to put it on top. Mine would be 1 and actually going straight into the second for my bobble stitch there. But you might find if yours is in a slightly different place, you want to do 2 before you do your bobble, or when we come to doing the other one, it will be potentially the opposite because we'll be going the opposite way round, because that way we'll get our knuckles on the outside of both of our folding joints in the correct way. So to create the knuckle, we're going to do an MB6. So yarn round the hook first like this. So you've got it on there, in, through, and through 2 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on the 6th one, when you've got all those loops on your hook like that, yarn over and come through all the loops in one motion. But what I really want to point out is just see how I've got my 3rd finger in the back of that bobble stitch like that. That's going to be pushing all those stitches forward before you then go into that next double crochet along and do that one nice and tight while you've got those stitches pulled forward. And that way it will lock the bobble onto the front side of the fabric. Now, I would say that that's one of the most commonly asked questions that I've had recently is about locking bobbles onto the right side of the fabric. Make sure you've got those stitches pushed forward when you're working the bobble, and then keep it pushed forward while you work that next double crochet, and that'll knock that nice and prominently onto the right side of the fabric. So then I'm going to continue completing that round back to my stitch marker like that. So I've got my knuckle on the front of my arm. Then on this round after your bobble, just go a bit slowly so that you definitely catch all your stitches. So you will still have 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. 1 sits right on top of the bobble, but what we're actually going to do is drop down to 5 stitches. So what I'm going to do is a decrease in my first 2. Now, if your bobble is in the same position as mine, that will mean that you're taking half of this stitch here and half from the top of the bobble. So that becomes 1, before then going round and doing all the other stitches. But make sure you catch the one that's right after the bobble there, because that's that tight one. It might be a bit smaller than normal. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, if you are a beginner, this is going to feel very, very fiddly. Coming down to just 5 stitches. My big advice is it is worth it and it's not for very long. So if you want tips really on how to do it, definitely make sure that you are right side facing, because you're going to find it impossible otherwise. And then if you have a little look at the way that I hold my crochet hook, ordinarily I'm likely to be holding my hook in a horizontal position like that in my hand. When I'm doing these skinny rounds, I'm almost holding my hook vertically alongside the piece that I'm crocheting, so that it's much easier to slide into the back of that little round like that. So 1, 2, just go nice and slowly, 3, 4, and 5. Now it's going to get easy because we're going to go up to 10. So you're going to increase on all of them. So increase on all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then do 10 around the outside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then decrease them back down to 5. Then you break yarn at the end of that one, leaving yourself an end that you can sew in. And now we're going to rejoin to work the second one alongside it. So when we rejoin, what we want to do is make sure that we're rejoining into the last stitch that was used on this main round. So we used 6 of them, we should have 12 here unused. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. But what I'm actually going to do is put my hook into the one that has been used by this one. Now, if you're left-handed, you're more likely to be working the other one first, if you see what I mean. So I'm going to be doing kind of my left one, then this one, then this one. You're more likely to be doing your other one first. So you'll just be rejoining. This one will be on this side, and you're going to be rejoining there in order to go the other way and get this next one. So rejoin into that stitch that's been used there. Yarn over, and because we now want this to sit evenly and flat next to that first one, we're going to need to double crochet 1, 2, 3 from this side before jumping over and doing 1, 2, 3 from this side, and then you jump over again, and that 6 stitches that you've just made becomes this new round. So that's 6 of them done. That's round 1 effectively. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. It's time for a knuckle. So I would recommend putting in a stitch marker just so that you can see where that round ends. And then it's time to put a knuckle onto the top of our fingers again. Now, this is why it's not stated in your pattern, because it's going to be at a different point in your round again this time, because it's all on where you have stated that you've rejoined. So you just got to use your judgment on landing that knuckle on the same side as your first one that you put in within one of the stitches on this round. So mine's actually going to be my second to last stitch this time. So I'm going to go in and double crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, and then in my second to last stitch I'm going to do an MB6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then finish off that round like that. So I've got my knuckle in place. I'm going to remove my stitch marker now so I can see my stitches a bit more clearly. So this is my decrease when I'm going back down to 5. That fiddly round where you've just got 5 coming off the back of the bobble. Then increase them up. Then break your yarn again when that one's completed. And now we're going to rejoin to do the last one here. So the same thing that we did before, we're going to put your hook into the last one that's been worked by that one so that we've got 6 clear left on this round. Rejoin like that, and then double crochet your clear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Then pop in your stitch marker. And then it's knuckle time. So we need to get the knuckle obviously on the top of this round as we come back round again. So this time, I think it will be my second to last again. So one, 2, 3, 4, my MB6, and then finish that round off. So then go ahead and finish that in exactly the same way as you did the other two. So just to summarise today, really, because there's been quite a lot to digest in that video, and not all of it will be relevant to everybody, in terms of if you are a beginner and you don't need to worry so much about a lot of the detail that I've discussed. But let me just recap it all. So today you make your choice on which foot to use. You can go for the classic Phillipe one, which is nice and simple. You will do a split technique, but you're not got the added complication of bobbles, and your rounds aren't as small and skinny. So this would be a good choice if you are going in as a beginner, or if you do have the PDF, there's one that's even simpler than that if you wanted to. If you're tackling what I showed you there, what we're really talking about is splitting rounds and learning that technique of splitting rounds, but bearing in mind the fact that you've got a jointed elbow. Now, what I quickly discussed for the perfectionists amongst you is if you see the bumps on your joint, that's effectively the elbow, because the joint will naturally move inwards. So I would recommend getting your knuckles on the same side as those bumps. So bumps, get your knuckles on that side on both of your arms, and that way your arms will more naturally move inwards in a joint like an elbow that we have. So then discussing splits and getting them even so you've got nice flat rounds, really do make that judgment on where you split them to make sure that you've got them nice and flat to that elbow joint. So it really, so long as you split them into 3 even rounds of stitches, you can do them wherever you want to. I'm just going to pop a little bit more stuffing into my hand there, having just had a little look at that one. So you can always pop the stuffing down the holes later on, and we'll discuss lots more about stuffing and sewing up later down the line. So then when it comes to popping your knuckles on, get them into a stitch in that round that gets them where you want them to be. Again, evenly, nice and evenly on the top side to your joint. Then I guess once you finish this piece, make sure you've got stuffing in and you're happy with it. If you want to sew your ends in today rather than wait, then all you would do, just to quickly show you that for anyone that does want to feel like they've got a completely finished piece, is all you would do is when you've got the end of a round like that, is you can gather the stitches by coming up and through the halves of the stitches that are left, and then sew in to secure. With the ones in between, once you're definitely sure you've got enough stuffing in, because they're always great holes to be able to poke the stuffing through at any stage. Once you're happy, you can again sew those ends to close off the holes completely, so you know that stuffing's got no chance of ever moving. So you can close off the holes like that. When it comes to claws, so this one's obviously got claws on the end. I'm not going to show you this technique today. I'm going to come back to that later on in the cowl, only because I think a lot of you probably will enjoy adding extra claws in even. So you don't need to make the decision at this point about claws, because we can add claws on later on to any or all of different parts of your gargoyle's body. So don't worry about the claws today. Just get those fingers and digits in place, and then we'll be going on to the legs tomorrow. So tomorrow you're going to be going in for something very similar to what we've done before. It'll be a nice short video because you're going to make your two main parts of your legs a slightly bigger piece to the arms that we've done already, and then we'll be on a decision about the legs on the day that follows. Thank you for watching. I can't wait to see your choices today. This is exciting for me because it's going to be seeing what you all make of having to make a decision so that all your gargoyles start to become different.